Wolff responds. Normally, I don't comment on the details of what goes on in the United States Congress, either because it isn't worth it or because the mainstream media and even some progressive media cover it, and there's not much I can add. But today, such a grievous announcement came across that I felt I had to say something. The Trump administration and the Republican Party have announced that they are going to demand a law that limits the liability of companies that are telling their workers they must come back to work, limits them from any lawsuits that those workers, or for example, also customers, might levy against the companies for having an unsafe workplace. That is, having made the workers or the shoppers or others come to the workplace without having spent the money and taken the time to make them safe, which includes testing the workers, disinfecting the workplace, reconfiguring it for social distancing, etc. This is extraordinary. It means that we are going to tell the majority of Americans, working people, that they must come back to work, either because the president has ordered it, or because if they don't come back to work, they will be fired, or because if they are fired, they may not be eligible for unemployment either. In other words, you better come back to work or there's going to be hell to pay. You can, of course, choose not to, and then you can suffer the lost job, the lost income, and possibly the lost unemployment insurance. What a choice for the capitalist system to give the majority of its people. But this is even worse now. If you go back to work, and precisely because they haven't tested the worker next to you, and you get the virus, and you bring it home, and you infect the family, and possibly kill in that way another person, you will not be able to recover from the employer who put you in that position. And remember, when President Trump ordered the meat packers back to work, he did not order the meatpacking companies to make the workplace safe. As grotesque an unfairness as you could imagine. The Democrats haven't gone in that direction, which might make you a bit more sympathetic to them, but not necessarily. What the Democratic Party has been doing is pointing out that the 50 states are in terrible financial shape because unemployment means people don't pay taxes to the city or the state they live in. Cities and states need to do more for people when they're unemployed, but they get less revenue for it. Same kind of problem that, in effect, businesses have. But the Republican-dominated government, having bailed out businesses, is threatening not to bail out states and cities. Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, even went so far as to urge cities and states to go bankrupt, to not pay off their obligations, which include to tens of millions of public employees who have been paying into their pensions their entire lives. So here's what the Republicans have done. They've told the Democrats that they will not help cities and states unless the Democrats cave in and let them provide limited liability, protection in court against any suits from workers damaged by being forced in the way I described to go back to work without the employer or the government having taken half of the steps that would be necessary to make the workplace safe. Capitalism as a system has always ripped off the working class. Most workers know it. They know it if for no other reason than the bar they pass on the way home always invites them in there for a happy hour because it knows that the hours at work weren't. But this takes it to a whole new level. You are going to be forced to go to work. You're going to have to bear the risk of illness and death. And you're going to have to accept that you can't go to court and recover for the horror that your employer has imposed on you because the government has freed the employer from liability in the court. If ever there was an economic system that no longer deserved the loyalty of the people living under it, we have now arrived at a capitalism that has brought us to just that point.